Hello, my name is Tawana Brown, and I serve as the Assistant Director in Parent and Family Programs here at the University of Alabama. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar Wednesdays. As we conclude, we save the best maybe for last. We have Catherine Edge here with us from the Warner Transportation Museum. And so we are just going to ask you, Catherine, just to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the museum world.
Right. Well, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, and the Transportation Museum is a great location in Tuscaloosa, both for the community and campus. It's a very unique place in the way that it's set up, but then also what it discusses. But I'll get into all of that in just a minute. But I came into the museum profession. I'm a graduate of the University of Alabama. I majored in anthropology and I minored in English. And I knew I wanted to get a master's. And as I went through my undergraduate career, I was trying to figure out what that master's program might look like. And I through the help of Career Services, I found museum curation, which I hadn't really considered before. And I thought, yeah, that actually sounds really cool. I like museums. I like older things. I like figuring out, what was this object used for, and what came before it, what potentially, developed after it, things like that. And so I decided I shifted then and went the museum route. And that particular, during my time in the anthropology department, I was the only student that was focused more on museums. I went to the University of Leicester in Leicester, England, to get my master's in museum studies, and was over there for a year, which was amazing. And I loved every minute of it. And the only reason I came back is because my student visa ran out and they made me. But it was a wonderful experience. And because of that, I have friends all over the globe. So whenever I have a question or need some feedback, I have the ability to ask friends of mine in Canada, friends of mine in Greece and Britain, Germany. I have contacts all over the globe, as well as the United States. So that's really how I got into the field, and I've been fortunate to work professionally since completing my degree in the field for the last 14 years. So I've been in the field for that long.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's good to have connections. And I'm sure you did not want to come back. I think I would have wanted to stay.
They no, I didn't. It was fantastic. It was a wonderful year. And there were experiences that I had through that program that were, I just, that could be a session just on its own. But the internship that I completed was with the Royal Collection. So I was working at Windsor Castle and Buckingham Palace for 2 months, and just got to where walking up to the, because I had one of those little tags and everything that I'd flash that says, yes, I'm supposed to be here. I know where I'm going. And eventually it just felt like I live here. This is, this is where I live, now. But it was
home is where the heart is. Home is where the heart is.
It was incredible.
So transitioning, when you came back, I'm guessing you probably worked here for a little while. How did you get into the museum here at UA again? And if you can just provide us a little history of the museum that you know.
Right. So I've worked at a couple of different places around town. I was at the I started just after graduate school at the Warner, the Westervelt Warner Museum of American Art, which unfortunately no longer exists. Some of our locals might recognize it more by the Tuscaloosa Museum of Art, which is what it transferred into. But unfortunately, that collection is no longer available, and that museum does not exist anymore. I left that position to be the director of the Tuscaloosa County Preservation Society, and I was there for 6 years, and then transferred from the Preservation Society to the director of the Transportation Museum, and I've been here since 2016. And so I'm about to have an anniversary, 6-year anniversary here at the museum. But the museum, like I said, at the beginning of our talk, is a very unique place because it is managed by the university. So my staff and I are university employees, but we're not located on campus. Our property is actually a City of Tuscaloosa property. So we walk the line between the City of Tuscaloosa and the University of Alabama. So depending on what happens, there's my mind is a massive flow chart. Is this university business? Is this city business? But it's a very unique space anyway. We're located right at the intersection of Jack Warner Parkway and Queen City Avenue. Our immediate neighbors are the Tuscaloosa River Market and the Tuscaloosa Public Library. So we're this wonderful little cultural and immediately communal trifecta with the library and the river market immediately adjacent to us. The museum opened in December 13th of 2011. So just 2 months ago, the museum turned 10 years old, and ever since then, we have, especially since becoming immediately related and part of the university, we have tried to establish and develop relationships with the other units that exist within the museum's department, but then also interdisciplinary with other topics as well. So right now, for example, we have students from a marketing class who are coming down to the museum to complete an assignment. And the reason the marketing class is a bit unusual is the Transportation Museum is the local history museum. We're the only one. We're the only entity in town that really talks about the history of Tuscaloosa. But we specifically do it through the lens of transportation. So the name of the museum can be a little confusing because some might think transportation. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of a diesel versus an electric engine and have examples of those types of vehicles. Not the case. It's more how transportation developed Tuscaloosa into the town that we see today and what the history of that looks like in the community and the stories that we can share through that particular lens. We're not specifically beholden to that, but that's a very, very strong theme and undercurrent in the stories that we tell and the information about the community that we delve into and provide.
Thank you so much. So I'm sure the museum has lots of great attributes that you probably love. Can you just share with us just a few of the highlights of the museum?
Yes. So again, it's a very, very unique space. The building itself is historic in its own right, which is one of the reasons that the city worked so hard to convert it into a space that would have an ongoing use. The building is historic. It was the Queen City bathhouse, and the lawn that we have outside now is used to be a pool. It's now a lovely green space, but the entire property was an Olympic-sized pool with built-in bleachers and a built-in art deco style fountain with a wading pool at the base where at the time little children would swim, but then the pool itself was Olympic size, and the building where the museum currently resides was the bathhouse. So basically the locker room where showers and storage and all existed for those who were coming to swim at the pool. So the building itself is very interesting. It was designed by a local architect named Don Buell-Schuler, and it's circular. It's made out of concrete. There are very few buildings in town that exist that look like our structure. And so it's historically important from those architectural standpoints. It was developed through it was a CCC project. So the history of the building itself is very interesting, and it's only been the bathhouse and the museum. There was a period of time in between there where the building was vacant, but it's only held those two reasons. And as you go through the museum, the original floor plan has been maintained, so that footprint of the pool house is still there. So again, it's not only the history of Tuscaloosa that we're talking about in terms of tours or our artifacts or things that are on the walls, but the building itself is an artifact as a historic structure. And again, that footprint of the original purpose is maintained in the floor as you walk around. So it's a really interesting place. We have so many interesting artifacts. The biggest one is our 1909 Maxwell. So we do have a car. We're a transportation museum that does have a car. It's the only car that we have, but it's not the only vehicle we have. It is our largest. So we have a 1909 Maxwell. We have a penny farthing bicycle. And the most recent acquisition that has really proven very, very interesting to our visitors is a 1919 Brunswick phonograph. And it's the beginning of our learning collection, which means it is not just there to look at. You know, we can engage with that artifact a little bit more. And it's functional. And we worked with a wonderful local craftsman named Mr. Jamie Brewer, who is just amazing. And he loaned us a collection of 1920s records. So whenever we play music and records on the 1919 Brunswick, it creates a more immersive environment with our car, with its 1909 date, with the Brunswick with its 1919 date, and then and a 1925 image of Greensboro Avenue. It really creates a stronger impression of what Tuscaloosa was like at the beginning of the 20th century, when windows would have been open. You walking down the street, you would have heard, this type of music being played on these types of pieces of furniture, because they were pieces of furniture, and so it really creates a very immersive experience for the visitors. And so we're thrilled to have the Brunswick, and the fact that it works, it's amazing. We encourage everybody to come down and have a look at the Brunswick, because it is really interesting. And the fact it works, it's gorgeous, and we have records that would have been played at the time and on this type of machine. So all of it together just creates a really interesting experience.
Yeah. So I know you said everybody should come and check it out. Why do you feel that this museum in particular is important for parents and family members and students to come and visit?
Well, as whenever students, prospective or new current, are coming to Tuscaloosa, it's very easy to be really focused on places and activities on campus, and it's really easy to be focused in the immediate area. So, the Strip and and downtown Tuscaloosa, with the way that downtown has changed over the past couple of years. But coming to the Transportation Museum is a really great way, I think, for students and parents and families to get a better sense of exactly what makes Tuscaloosa, how long, Tuscaloosa has been here. We are one day older than the state of Alabama. So just a few years ago, whenever the state was celebrating its bicentennial, Tuscaloosa was celebrating its own bicentennial, because we're one day older. And so that's an interesting story. Getting a sense of how Tuscaloosa came to be the town that we are today, why it's located where it is, why when the capital moved away from Tuscaloosa in the late 1840s to Montgomery, which is where it's been located since that time, why the university didn't follow. All of that is it answers the question of why Tuscaloosa still exists today and why the university is still here, and how the town went from log cabins on a bluff to the to the city that we see today. And so visiting the museum and getting a sense of, for students, where you're going to be living as a member of the community for 4, 5, maybe even 6 years, if master's degrees and things like that develop out of the course of study. Really having a better sense of where you live and how you're contributing to the community, I think is really, really important. As a parent, I would definitely want to know where I'm, background information on where I'm sending my child. That's why I think the museum is important for parents and families as well. Again, it creates a stronger sense of community for campus, and provides a backdrop for where these families are going to have a connection now that they have a student who is going to be a student at the University of Alabama. So once you're part of the UA community, you're also part of the Tuscaloosa community, and that's what the museum helps support and helps furnish.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So can you just tell us, kind of wrapping up, what are the current exhibits right now, and then what are some exhibits to look forward to in the future?
Right. So we currently have an exhibit on a contemporary Native American Muskogee artist named Mary Smith. Mary is she's absolutely wonderful. She's based in Bixby, Oklahoma. And our exhibit really tells her story. She's a very interesting person. And there was a particular Native American braid basketry rim that she revived that was almost lost because of lack of practice, and the individuals that knew how to make it were getting older and passing on. Mary has been able to revive that particular kind of braid rim, which is really incredible. And she actually started as an artisan, quote unquote, late in life. Those are her words, not mine. But she didn't really get started until she was in her 40s. And but she's incredible. She does mat weaving, she does basketry, she does pottery, she does all sorts of Native American artworks. And it's an absolute pleasure to have worked with her through this process and be able to tell her story and showcase her artworks. Mary, the exhibit on Mary will be up through March the 19th, which is through spring break. The museum will be open during spring break. Our regular schedule is Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4:30. General admission is free. And Mary's exhibit will be up through March 19th, which again is the end of spring break. We have a little bit of a lapse, and then about a month later, the next exhibit that we have coming up is part of the Flow Tuscaloosa project, and of which the museum is participating. And our next exhibit is called Swimming Together, and it will focus a little bit more on the importance of the building as a swimming pool, the history of swimming, the importance of water, and how all of that works together to create a certain type of communal space. And considering the history of the building as a formal swimming location, it was a perfect opportunity to collaborate with the Flow Tuscaloosa project and be able to showcase that type of history. Again, not just specific to the museum, but specific to the importance of water and waterways and things like that the Flow Tuscaloosa project is highlighting and bringing to the forefront. So that exhibit is slated to open on April the 19th, and it will run all the way through the summer to the end of August. So information is on our website about Mary's exhibit that is currently up through the middle of March, and the Swimming Together exhibit that will be up from April through August. So that's what we have. That's what we have currently going on. That's what we have immediately coming up. And again, museums open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 4:30. General admission is free. Guided tours are available for groups, classes, anything along those lines. That is absolutely an option. And there's a small fee for the guided tour, but $2 for adults for a guided tour through the museum. So plenty of option. And our information's on our website. We're on Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of good stuff. And information is also shared about our projects and things that we're working on through UA Museums as well. So plenty of ways to find us, and plenty of ways to see what we have going on and what we have coming up.
Yeah, I think you have me at free. So
free, yes. General admission, yes.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing all about the Warner Transportation Museum. Parents and family members, we encourage you to encourage your student to visit, but we also encourage you to visit once you come to town and visit your student. And just kind of, as we said before in the previous webinars, is get a taste of Tuscaloosa. This is also your home away from home, even though your student is here and you're not on a daily, but we would still love for you to just immerse yourself in our community. Again, thank you again, Catherine, and thank you all for joining as we wrap up. If you have not watched our previous Around the Town webinars, please go back and watch those and gain a little bit of wisdom and knowledge about our other museums as well. And so we will conclude with that. Thank you, and roll tide.